minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Week 11 Monday Night Halftime Rapid Reaction Show. So riding solo this week. Brian's a little otherwise indisposed and couldn't make it, but the show must go on. So I'm sure I'll get chirped for something I say along the way. Just kick it off as normal. Patriots game. If anyone out there watched the Patriots and Jets game, I'm sorry. That was atrocious. No one needed to be subjected to that, and that was really awful. But the good guys ended up winning, so that was nice. Zach Wilson, what a joke. Learn to take some accountability, man. You let the team down. It was bad, right? Figure it out. And since Brian's not here, the Broncos, yikes. But you're not here for that. You're here for some fantasy takes, so we'll get right into it. Treylon Burks to start off is our first guy here. Went 7 for 111 on 8 targets. Really was his coming out party against the Packers, and even right in the last play of the game against Jair Alexander, right? Great play call, right? Not expecting to be thrown to, makes a great play, really seals the deal there. So, I think he's going to be someone that is going to be a very popular waiver addition. Looking back over the last, couple of games or right, he's still very similar in routes with Woods and Westbrook-Ikhine. So the hard part with it is, right, that was Tannehill completed 22 passes, which is the most that they've completed all year. And right, this is Derrick Henry season. Are they going to be throwing that much that often? Right. They attack the Packers, especially through the air. Where I'm not down on Treylon Burks at all, but I would want to temper expectations maybe slightly because you just don't know how much, right? Are they going to be completing 22, 23, 24, 25 passes a game, right? Really, they're below that number, which is going to limit his upside slightly. So I still like him as a possible addition, but just keep in mind, right, that was a very pass-heavy game for them, which is kind of silly to say with 22 completions, but relatively pass-heavy. So if that number starts to come down just a little bit, right, that could also bring down that number for him. Next up is the disgusting, terrible to figure out and to plan out the Detroit Lions backfield. So DeAndre Swift finally had a week where he wasn't limited at practice, day-to-day stuff. Like he was supposed to be healthy and supposed to be the guy. Even Campbell said, like, yeah, we got to get him going more. And it just continues to stay extremely messy and gross. Also, Justin Jackson is now getting usage too, and to the point of, right, yesterday, Jackson had 24 snaps to Swift's 20. Right, he had 9 rushes to Swift's 5. They both ran 9 routes, right? And those routes, Swift had, 3 targets to Jackson's 1. But the fact that even now Justin Jackson is getting involved in that mix is just adding to the grossness. Jamaal Williams at this point is a must play. If you have him, you right, stick him in the flex, stick him in your RB2 spot. He's getting continuously way too much work to sit, especially at the goal line. Right, at the end of the day, even if he's splitting rushes, right, he had 17 to Jackson's 9 to Swift's 5. So, right, 17 to 16, kind of, right, if you split it between those two other guys, right, even if he's getting half the rushing work, he's getting the most important fantasy touches, which are the ones by the goal line. So he's a must play. If you are a DeAndre Swift manager, I don't know, man. I mean, it's one of those things where, right, you look at the skill and the ability and everything there. You have to forget ADP at this point, right? It's way too late in the season, right? You spent first, second round draft capital on him, maybe third round, right? Wherever you got him, you have to ignore that at this point, right? It's kind of like the Najee Harris thing where it's like, just because you draft him in the first doesn't mean you have to play him. And that's really where DeAndre Swift is right now. He's not a must play in fantasy. And the way that the backfield is getting split out, and especially again with the inclusion of Justin Jackson, you can't start him and feel comfortable in any ways. If it's a desperation play, I get it. But the touchdown really saved him yesterday. So it's tough. I don't love it. If you have equal kind of like terrible decisions, then yeah, you can kind of stick with Swift and kind of hope that his talent takes over. But if you have better options, I personally wouldn't force Swift in the lineup because I don't think he really deserves it the way that Campbell's been using and splitting up that backfield. Next up, Latavius Murray. So I had this kind of part written up prior to all of the day's news. So Melvin Gordon released, which was kind of out of nowhere. Chase Edmonds is injured and he's going to be out for the next several games. So with that, right, even before all that, Latavius Murray was dominating the backfield carries. He had 17 to Melgo's 8 to Chase Edmonds 2. They were kind of splitting targets. Melvin Gordon had 5 targets, so Latavius is 4. Latavius had a 50% snap share. Melvin Gordon's had a 45. So it was a pretty even split. But, Latavius Murray was getting the real work. So, when the whole Bradley Chubb trade to Miami went down and Chase Edmonds came back, I was really nervous because I'm like, oh, that's a 3-headed monster. That's gross. And what we saw over the last 2 weeks or so was Latavius Murray still was kind of the guy. It was a gross split, but he was the one that was producing. Now you take away Melvin Gordon, you take away Chase Edmonds, the backfield's his. Now, is that the best thing for the Denver Broncos? I'm not sure. But for fantasy purposes, you're now getting a workhorse running back. I guess in theory, what should be a good offense and a terrible offense in real life, but you're getting a workhorse guy that doesn't really have any backfield competition. They're obviously going to add someone. They're obviously going to bring someone else. He's not going to get 95, 100% of the usage, right? He's just not that type of guy, and that's not, long-term stable, but he's going to get the lion's share of the work. He's going to get most of the targets. He's going to get most of the rushes. When they get to the goal line, he's going to be the guy. And really what's great is he's pretty available. He's 34% rostered on ESPN, 24% on Yahoo, 25% on Sleeper. So there's a very strong chance that he is available in your league to go out there and make a wire addition for. My guess is he's going to be many people's number 1 addition. But I think that's fair. And I think at this point of the season, if you have the chance to go get him, whether it's a lot of fab or your number 1 waiver priority, I think this is the guy to go and take the stab at, right? This is the type of running back that you add week 11, week 12, heading into week 12, right? Fantasy playoff times coming around, that you kind of blow the bank on that guy because he's someone, I don't want to say Latavius Murray is the league winner, but he's someone that, right, is if you're kind of shallow at running back or you have like 1 or 2 guys and you don't really have a flex, like he's someone that can go in there and really bolster the entire starting lineup that you're running out there every, Thursday, Sunday, Monday, right? For whatever week you're at. So I think he's going to be the number 1 waiver addition for a lot of people. I think that's correct. I think you got to spend a good chunk of your fab on him, whatever you have left. If you're the number 1, if you're still just running straight kind of like waivers in that order, you got to go for him as well. I think he's going to be the guy. Moving on, Donovan Peoples-Jones. So he's put together a really solid season. Over the course of the season, he's averaging 4 receptions and just around 60 yards per game. But if you really look over the last few weeks, so really since week 6, he's been over 11 PPR points every single game. He's actually a wide receiver 25 over that time frame. And now, right, Deshaun Watson is coming back. Now, Watson didn't look especially sharp in the preseason, and we haven't seen him play, right, in like 2 years. So there's definitely a rust factor that's there that could be an issue. And if it's going to hit anybody, it's going to hit someone like Donovan Peoples-Jones more than probably like an Amari Cooper or even a David Njoku, right? Usually, that type of quarterback, even if they're rusty, they're still going to be able to hit their top playmakers. And I don't think DPJ is there just yet, but he is very solid and he's producing very well. And right, and again, over these last several weeks, right, as a back end wide receiver too, he's once again extremely relatively available. 38% rostered in ESPN, 45% in Yahoo, 57% in Sleeper. So, Sleeper, depending on your Sleeper league, he may not be there, but ESPN, Yahoo, it's looking like you have a really solid chance. And again, this is a time, right, especially when you're making those playoff moves, to go out there and get as many good players as you can to either stash on your bench because the other teams can't get him. If an injury occurs, you now have a great fill-in piece. Or maybe you're making a championship run and like you're led by a couple of studs and the other parts of your teams aren't as strong. Well, now you have someone that can go in there and now your flex rather than even DeAndre Swift, right? Someone along those lines where it's like they're good in theory and Najee Harris are good in theory. They finally had a good game, but you're not really sure. Well, I know this guy's getting this really solid 11 to 15 points a game, right? He's a wide receiver 2 in my flex position, or if you have 3 wide receivers, so on and so forth, right? That's where that type of player can come in, and that's where that type of move can come in. And realistically, he's not like a super sexy pick, so you probably don't have to spend a crazy amount of fab on him or anything like that because, right, he's for the Browns. He's the number 2 wide receiver for there. You don't probably have to spend up as much as you normally would for another wide receiver 2, right, just on a different team. And then slightly away from redraft, if the buy window is already not closed for Peoples-Jones, it's certainly about to be, especially with Deshaun Watson coming back. So if you have the ability to go out there in Dynasty and add him, I certainly would go out there and put some feelers out to see what they're asking for because his price is only going to go up. And right, again, morals aside, right, if you get paired with an elite quarterback like Watson was last time we saw him, right, his value in fantasy is only going to go up as well. No breaks on this one. This is, a little back and forth. So Demarcus Robinson coming up next. I don't really get why his rostership is so low. He's under 1% on ESPN, 5% on Yahoo, 9% on Sleeper. And I just don't know if people haven't caught up to what he's done the last few weeks. I don't know if everyone's just assuming it's Mark Andrews is back. So now there's no wide receiver is playable. If everyone just assumes that it's Devin Duvernay's job. But over the last 3 weeks, he's had a target share. This is from JJ Zacharyson, target share of 23.5%, 19%, and 28%. So that's 8 targets in week 9, 8 targets in week 8, 4 targets in week 9, but they only had 22 pass attempts, so kind of drops down. And then yesterday, 9 targets, and he went 9 for 128. He is emerging over these last few weeks as the wide receiver 1 in Baltimore. And right, even with Mark Andrews back, Lamar is going to have to throw to someone other than just Mark Andrews. So the fact that he's going to go right after yesterday's game, that number is going to skyrocket. So if you were able to kind of I added on a couple of teams over this past week because I was kind of taking the flyer there, and it certainly worked out well. But he's someone that his roster number is so low, but he should be a top waiver priority for many teams. And if it's something like maybe you are at a complete log jam for running back and Latavius Murray just does not make sense at all to waste money on or that you can't add for whatever reason. Demarcus Robinson, if you're in wide receiver help, I think that's a really nice pivot. That offense should be continuously to get better, right? Baltimore is trying to make a postseason run. They got to get their offense going, right? A healthy Mark Andrews is only good for their offense. So that opens up more passing lanes, keeps drives alive, right? More chances for Demarcus Robinson to also get work. So as that offense gets more unhealthy, Gus Edwards coming back, all of those things are good things for fantasy because they're good for the offense. So if you are not someone that needs or wants a Latavius Murray, Demarcus Robinson could be a really nice pivot, right? And helping your offense that way as well. couple more before we get to our quick hits. Juwan Johnson. So shout out to Brian. He told you guys, he called this several weeks ago, right? That his play was, even if it wasn't super flashy, there was something there. And right, Brian and I have talked about it. We talked about it before the season even started. We were talking about Scott Fishbowl, right? The tight end landscape is gross. It's just gross. It always is. Every year it's a cycle, right? Tight ends are gross. The summertime hits. This is the year of the tight end, and another happens, and then it just goes on and on and on, right? It's Travis Kelce and the biggest gap in the world, right? So trying to find the diamonds in the rough is where you win and lose games, and that's where you can really separate yourself out. And Juwan Johnson is someone that we've talked about a few times on this show, and now, right, in the last 5 games, he has 5 touchdowns. He's had a 20% target share in the red zone over the last 5 weeks, only behind Olave. He is a massively important person for that offense. Also, right, the Saints, well, they are out Cam Jordan, but right, whenever they're in a negative game script, like that is his go-to time. 3 of his touchdowns in the last 5 weeks have come when they were down 7 or more points. Now, that's a good thing, right? Because they get San Francisco, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Cleveland, Philly to end the year. You know, those aren't like fantastic matchups for him to like be for the Saints to be well out in front, right? Where they're probably going to be playing from behind at San Francisco. Tampa Bay's getting better. Atlanta, who knows? Cleveland with Watson, maybe. Philly possibly playing from behind. So there's a lot of negative game script outlook for Juwan Johnson, which is only a good thing for your fantasy teams. And especially if you have anyone other than Travis Kelce, like you need to be looking for at least one other tight end. You need to. And he is someone that is still relatively available. 19% rostered on ESPN, 31% on Yahoo, 30% on Sleeper. So a massive amount of leagues, he's still out there, right? And it's one of those things where people get take lock, and especially with tight ends, name value carries a lot. Go out, get Juwan Johnson. We've been telling you this for a while now. Hopefully you've been listening. And the last guy before our quick hits is Darius Slayton. So Wan'Dale Robinson got an ACL, so he's out for the year, which really sucks because, you know, he was starting to look, you know, like he was making some plays. Good guy, right? You hate to see injuries. So that does suck for him. But in regards to fantasy, right, this only helps Slayton in a way because, frankly, there's no one else to throw to. There's no one else. Was it like Richie James or right? Saquon Barkley can only get so much work. They're already running him in, right, as much as they possibly can to begin with. I guess if OBJ comes back, but right, he's not the sexiest names, but they really don't have anyone else. And this was someone that I think Brian actually mentioned all the way back in week 5, where, you know, he has a relatively high floor, a low ceiling. But, you know, what was it? Yeah, he you know, his Brian's quote was back. He's like, he wouldn't be surprised if Slayton went for 5 receptions and 60 yards every week for the rest of the season, right? Nothing fancy, nothing sexy, but like steady production. Well, since he made that little offhanded comment, he's averaged 3.5 receptions for 64 yards. So Brian is not here, but Brian is smart. We don't always like to tell him that. But he's a smart guy. He knows what he's talking about. And he really did a great job with that Slayton prediction. And now with Robinson out, right, it's just even more of who else is Daniel Jones going to throw to. So on ESPN, 21% rostered. Yahoo and Sleeper, a lot more, 51 and 58%. So unless I got the ESPN number wrong, that's a wild gap. But to that point, right, Slayton, even if he's available around 50% of your leagues, you got a decent chance to go out there and add him. And again, definitely not going to be a ceiling type play, but if you have a lot of boom and bust guys in your lineup, having some steady floor is a great way to help offset, right? If you have someone that can go for 30, but then also go for 3, well, having someone that you can kind of plug and play 10 to 12 points every week helps offset some of that other roller coaster. Right, where that variance is then much more acceptable and better, especially when you're looking at, right, again, fantasy playoffs. Variance is great over the regular season. Fantasy playoffs, you need some sort of steady production as well, right? So you can help mitigate if someone, right, completely busts in that manner. So some quick hits to finish it off. Dameon Pierce, just a brutal game. Washington completely sold out to stop him. And, poor guy. I mean, he was just getting crushed back there. The O-line was getting manhandled. It was just brutal. That was Pierce's first game under 12 PPR points since week 2. So like he's been fantastic. He's been a great fantasy play. He still dominated the backfield touches, the rushes, everything. So in that regards, I'm not worried at all. Right. Their team just got dominated from the first play of the game to the last. The only thing I'm slightly concerned about, and it's not that I'm not playing Dameon Pierce anymore, but I'm concerned about is like if this is the blueprint where every other team just realizes like we're just going to put like 10 guys in the box and like that's it, because he is all they have. So if the Texans can't do anything to even like have a barely mediocre passing threat, that's my concern with Dameon Pierce the rest of the way. It's just he won't be able to run if teams don't even a little bit respect the passing game. Antonio Gibson, really, really big day for him yesterday, and not necessarily the biggest day fantasy points wise, right? But he had the highest snap share of the season at 68%. This is the first week that both him and Brian Robinson that have been healthy and active, that he actually outworked Robinson. He even had more rushes than Robinson when they were trying to run the clock in the second half, right? So he wasn't right where Robinson was kind of that early down bruiser. Even Gibson was getting work at that point. So, right, that's massive and massively important for that fantasy outlook. And now take J.D. McKissic, who's out for the rest of the season. Yesterday really could have been the passing of the torch from Brian Robinson back to Antonio Gibson as the lead role in Washington. Swavey, AJB and Pierce for Kenneth Walker, 9-2, secured first round buys. Starters would be Lamar, Chubb, Etienne, Tyreek, Amon-Ra, Kelsey, and Walker. Would you rather have AJB in the flex and try and trade Pierce? It'd be hard to trade him. I feel like his value is low. Yeah, the hard part with Pierce right now is, right, everyone's going to look at that last game, and it was a dud. But from week 2 to, the previous week, he was over 12 points a game. So realistically, I guess it depends on like when your trade deadline is. If you have another week, if you can get one more game in and allow Pierce to have another better game, and then it's going to increase him. Right now, yeah, trying to sell, people are going to lowball that offer because it's right. He just had one bad game, even though the rest of this season he's been fantastic. But I really like AJ Brown. Kenneth Walker's a stud. I do like Kenneth Walker. Tyreek, Amon-Ra. I guess the only thing I'd be AJ Brown or Walker in your flex though. Who's your? I think that's a wash for me. I think they both have sky high ceilings. My question would be like, what other wide receiver do you have in case something happens to Amon-Ra or Tyreek, where AJ Brown is a great flex play, and then if anything happens, you still have a really stud wide receiver for the other one. Should I trade away Barkley and Fields for Aaron Jones and AJ Brown or DK Metcalf for the chance? Fields is probably going to be out for a couple of weeks. That's what it sounds like. Higgins? Okay, then yeah, I could see that. I'd honestly, Swavey, I'd be fine either way. I think AJ Brown he's had a couple of down weeks, but with Hurts, his ceiling is still 20, 30 points a game, right, with those multiple touchdown games. But Kenneth Walker, I think, is going to be a safer play on a week-to-week basis with just as high of a ceiling. Maybe slightly lower, but a much higher floor. So I don't mind that trade at all, especially if you have Higgins back there. Yeah, Fields, I think Fields is going to be out for a couple of weeks. They should be out, right? It sounds like a dislocated shoulder. Awesome, man. Thanks, Swavey. Appreciate it a lot. Thanks for checking in, man. It sounds like either I agree. I'm the same way, right? You have other guys that can, right? Tyreek Hill can go for like 40 points. So Kenneth Walker, I like that. Fields AC joint, dislocated shoulder. I think he's going to be out. He should be out. Barkley and Fields for Godwin and Walker. Godwin is tough only because that Tampa offense is just, you want it to be so much better than it has been. I know they're starting to click a little bit more, but Fields, AJ Brown, I'd rather have AJ Brown than Godwin. I think that's crazy in the sense of Godwin is definitely a safer play. I look at if you really need ceiling, AJ Brown I think provides that a little bit more. Also, I don't really want to be getting rid of Saquon Barkley at all. So I would, though Kenneth Walker is kind of a wash. Fields for Godwin, Barkley and Fields for Godwin, Walker. I don't hate it. DK Metcalf, I don't know. I get Geno's been playing great, but just I don't know. I don't want to put my fantasy playoffs in the hands of Geno Smith just yet. Between them, Godwin definitely over DK. Actually, yeah, Barkley and Walker, I don't mind. It's going to take a little step back, I think, to Walker because Barkley is just Barkley. But getting rid of Fields and getting someone like Godwin, I like that. I like that option a lot too. I don't know if you can still can if someone's buying on Fields, but if you can, go for it, man. Where are we at here? Logan Thomas. So finally healthy, back in the offense. Best game of his season. Went 5 for 65 on 6 targets, 68% snap share. This is very much kind of like a look back to talking about like a Juwan Johnson. Tight ends suck. Tight ends are gross. So if you have someone that might be coming on in the offense, finally healthy, probably feeling a little bit better, like after a couple of weeks of being around, Heineke is still playing much better. I like Logan Thomas. He has some solid matchups the next couple of weeks. Atlanta, he's got the Giants twice. Then I think he has like San Francisco or someone that's not a good matchup. But over the next couple of weeks, if you're needing tight end depth or just needing someone due to injury, Logan Thomas, I think, is wildly available. He's going to be free. You probably don't even need to waste a waiver move on him. Just wait till after waivers run and then just go pick him up. But I think he's a really worthy dart over the next 4 weeks. Then lastly, Skyy Moore. So, he finally had a good game. And I really understand, right? It took injuries to Juju and Hardman and Kadarius Toney for him to finally like step up and have like a halfway decent game. It's not like he even like blew the doors off. So Skyy Moore, I think, I'm a fan. I really want him to be good. I think optimistically, what do we actually know? Andy Reid runs an extremely complex offense. And it takes a lot for a rookie to understand, but then also get the trust of Mahomes and Andy Reid. Now, right, he was probably forced in the role due to injury. And maybe he just played himself into playing time, where, right, being able to prove to Mahomes and Reid that he can play. I wouldn't go over the moon on Skyy Moore just yet because I do think those are valid concerns that this was purely an injury-related thing and not that he's really taken the next step. But if you have a free spot on a bench, if you have just complete dead weight that you're never, ever going to start, I think adding Skyy Moore could be a really nice speculative add. If it doesn't work out, then you can just dump him like you were already carrying that dead weight anyways. But if Hardman is still kind of stays banged up, Toney, we know, can stay banged up. Juju, depending on how that concussion lasts. I mean, Skyy Moore still has a really great window here. So I'm a big fan of running out Skyy Moore and giving it a whirl. So I wouldn't spend any real money on him, but if you have the opportunity and you have dead weight at the end, I'd go for it. Worst case that happens is you drop dead weight for other dead weight and then you can move on. But the upside in that offense is obvious. So I'd be a big fan of there. Jacob, you got a question? Yeah, man. What's up? Oh man, the Niners are just taking it to the Cards right now. Gross. Oh, I guess we can end with TJ Hawkinson. Got another 9 targets. The guy's going to be top 4 rest of the season, no matter what. He's going to get so much work. Jacob, you got a question? If not, I'm going to end it. Got 30 minutes. I like to keep tight shows. What do we got? Dan, Skyy Moore is a 14-team flex. Yeah, depending on like especially how big the roster is. I could see that. JT for Pierce, Higgins, and Jeff Wilson. Keep AJ Brown, or Pierce and AJ Brown for Walker. Keep. Yeah, I like that. I like Pierce and AJ Brown for Walker, and then you have Higgins, Wilson. Yeah, I think I mean, I don't mind Pierce. I think it's the one game blip, but the issue and my concern, like I talked about earlier, with their offense is just so bad. If teams continue just do what the Commanders did and just like completely sell out to stop him every single play, it's going to be a rough end of the season. So even with some decent matchups in there, it's going to be scary. AJ Brown, I still am a fan of. The offense is sputtering a little bit, but his ceiling is there. But you have some really good wide receivers where I don't think you're going to outright miss him. And then getting Walker, you have Wiggins, Jeff Wilson. I like that for. Yeah, I'm a fan of that one. I would do that one. That's where I would lean if I were you. Cool. All right. Well, I wish you good luck. If you ever, right, Swavey, if you want to hit me up on Twitter, I'm at awlsabermetrics. I'll put it in the chat here. Always happy to help. And then everyone here at the Undroppables as well. We have some great fantasy people here. DFS people, betting, FIFA, whatever you want. We got it all for you guys. And right, all on Twitter is all free. If you really like our stuff, we do have a Patreon there for you guys. But we like to give out as much as we possibly can. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, they've just been bad. He's finally starting to look better with Christian Watson. I mean, I guess their defense was supposed to be the thing that really took them far this year, and their defense has not really been playing well. In theory, they've been playing better the last couple of weeks, but they've just been gross. If this is like a fantasy question, unless your waiver options are barren, I would probably shoot for other people than Rodgers, because I don't like the offense. I know they've been playing better. I'm sure his fantasy points, but I'm not a fan. Rodgers or Lawrence for playoffs? I'd have to look at what are their schedules. Lawrence hasn't been playing terrible, but I don't really love either of them. Trevor Lawrence, yeah, he's been gross too. Baltimore, Detroit, Tennessee, Dallas, week 15, Jets, week 16. So that's rough for Trevor Lawrence, week 15, 16. Week 17, he gets Houston, so that's good. What about Rodgers? We're looking at the last, especially the key games there. Rams, Miami, Minnesota. I mean, between that, defensively, Rodgers, I would go Rodgers. It's not sexy, but week 15 bye. Yeah, I would. Awesome, man. Thank you for the follow. Really appreciate it. And DM, tweet at me, whatever. I'm happy to help. Yeah, I would go with Rodgers over Lawrence at that point. I think their matchups are better. And in theory, right, Green Bay does have to win if they want to make any sort of run. So they should be playing better. I would go Rodgers over Lawrence in that scenario. All right. Well, I do have to get out of here, but I really appreciate it. Thanks for stopping in, guys. Really do appreciate it. Thanks for checking in. We run this every Monday night during halftime, and usually they don't go this long, but I'm here by myself, so Brian isn't here to rein me in. But with that said, we always end the show the same way. So our Robbie Anderson of the Week award goes to, unfortunately, the guy we've talked a lot about today, Dameon Pierce. 10 rushes for 8 yards. 3 targets, 2 catches for 9 yards. And per Ian Hartitz on Twitter, he had -2 rushing yards before contact. Like, just absolutely gross. So it was awful, man. I feel bad for him because he's been playing so well, but that team is awful around him. So unfortunately for him, he gets our Robbie Anderson of the Week award. Thanks, Raby, man. You too. I was down 55 points going into tonight. I only needed 15 points to take the W. Very, very tense. I have CMC, Connor, 49ers. Oh, you should. God. I mean, I think the only concern right now is 24-10. Do they take out? You need, yeah. 49ers special teams. Yeah, but you almost need, right, Arizona to score some points to make sure that that CMC is still scoring points there. You should be able to get 15 points combined in the second half, though, man. I think, Brian, you still got it. I'd hope you still got it. I mean, that's a lot of players to get 15 between them. And our fact of the week, we'll go for a 2 for here. One, our national animal is in fact the bald eagle, but if it was up to Benjamin Franklin, our national animal would have been a turkey, only native to us. And our second fact to end the show, because I'm a baseball player, in World War II, they made and shaped hand grenades to be the size and weight of a baseball, because all good American men should be able to throw a baseball. So with that said, have a great night, everyone. Thanks for checking in. 35 minutes, longest show of the year. It is what it is. Have a good one. Peace.